Okay, so this is lesson 6, and it's the halfway review session since we have 12 sessions, and this is lesson 6. So today we're going to review lessons 1 through 5. We're going to start reviewing in reverse since I think the triads and scale degrees are a bit harder. So we're going to review triads and scale degrees, and then we're going to go back to lessons 1 through 4, which are major and minor key signatures, scales, and intervals. And try to have a paper and pencil ready since we're going to be writing 2 scales today. So let's go back. Well, first of all, does anyone have any questions with the lesson 5 homework? Yes, no. If you guys don't have any questions, please try to complete the homework because I think it just helps you remember the material better. That's why we write the homework questions there, so yeah. So reviewing triads. A triad consists of the first, third, and fifth notes of a scale. And remember, there are 4 qualities of triads: major, minor, augmented, and diminished. So this is a way to remember how you can tell between those different qualities of triads. So for major, since we have 3 notes, the first note to the third note is a major third. For example, this is F, A, and C, and F to A is a major third. And then 3 to 5 is a minor third. So A to C is a minor third. Okay, and then for minor, it's the opposite way around. If we had a minor chord in this chord, it would be F, A flat, and C. That would be an F minor triad. So F to A flat would be a minor third, but then A flat to C would be a major third. I think in this case, the augmented and diminished ones are even easier to remember because it's just both intervals are major or both intervals are minor. So for augmented, we would add, here, let me annotate so it's easier to imagine. So if this was an augmented one, there would be a C sharp here because we already know F to A is a major third, but A to C right now, that's a minor third. So we have to raise that up a half step. So we get A and C sharp, which is a major third. Okay, and then last one, which is diminished, both intervals are minor. So if we start from F, a minor third up from F would be A flat. Since A is in the major key of F, so we lower it a half step to A flat. Okay, now we have a minor, but we're doing diminished right now, which means this interval also has to be minor. So a minor third above A flat would actually be C flat. Sounds like B, but you have to write C flat because the notes work that way. So you can't just write B, you still have to write C flat. And that's because if we just left it as C, A flat to C would be a major third. So we lower it a half step to make a minor third. And then now that these intervals are both minor, we have a diminished chord. Okay, and if that was way too many words for you, an easier way to remember it would just be to kind of memorize which chords are major. And then if you see a major chord with a lowered third, that's minor. If you see a major triad with a raised fifth, then it's augmented. And then if you see a minor chord with a lowered fifth, it's diminished. That's a lot of words, but I think it'll make more sense once we actually apply it. Okay, so all of these triads are in the root position because remember we learned inversions, so you don't have to worry about that. But okay, we're just gonna identify the following intervals. So, okay, the first one should be pretty easy, so you guys can just type that into the chat. So identify the following intervals by letter name and quality, so like G minor or A major. Okay, very good. Okay, great. You are correct. This is C major. And I think this is pretty common knowledge, but if you need to know the theory behind it, C to E is a major third and E to G is a minor third. So that's why it's major. Very good. This is G minor because G to B flat is a minor third. And then B flat to D is a major third. So this is a minor chord. Very good. It's basically D minor, and then you lower the fifth, so it's diminished. Very good. Good, because you recognize that F major would just be F, A, and C without the sharp. So if we raise the fifth by a half step, that would make it augmented. Okay, very good. Awesome. Yeah, that's B flat major. I think what I told you guys about like 1 to 3 is a minor and 3 to 5th is a major, if that's not helpful to you, I don't think you have to memorize it that way, but if that's helpful, you can remember it that way. But yeah, this is B flat major because B flat to D is a major third and D to F is a minor third. And another way you can remember it is just to think in the key of B flat major, and if D and F are in the major key, then this is a major triad. Very good job. Okay, and now we're going to review interval inversions. So here are the 3 triad inversions that we learned last lesson. And remember that the first inversion is also called a 6-3 triad, and the second inversion is also called a 6-4 triad. And then this is root position. Those are the ones we looked at before. So remember, in the first inversion, you just take the bottom note and put it on the top, and that gets this. And for the second inversion, you take the bottom note of the first inversion and you put it on the top. And we only have 2 inversions because if you put this back on the top, you just go back to the root. So these are the 3 inversions of a triad. Okay, good. So now we're going to try to identify intervals by inversions, quality, and letter name. So a quick way to identify whether an interval is inverted is to see whether there's one note that's apart from the different notes, from the other 2 notes. So if we look at this one, it doesn't look inverted because all 3 notes are next to each other in like 1, 3, 5. But if we look at this one, for example, one of the notes is not with the other 2, so we know that has to be inverted. And another tip to identify which inversion it is, if the separated note is on the top, then the triad is in its first inversion, and if it's on the bottom, then it's in its second inversion. Okay, so now that we know those tips, let's try to identify the following intervals by inversion, and then letter and quality. But we're gonna do inversion first. So for this first one, everybody type in the chat which inversion you think it is. And I think this one's pretty easy, so you can just type the letter and quality of it too. Okay, good. So correct, this is an F major triad in the root position. So now we're gonna go to the second one. Very good. We have G, B, and D, and that's a G major chord. And remember, 6-4 means second inversion, so you're correct. So we know we're in second inversion, right? Okay, so we have the notes G, C, and E. So try to rearrange those notes to get the order and like which note should be on the bottom.
C.
Very good. So is it major or minor?
Major.
Awesome. Excuse me. Yeah. So because we're in second inversion, we can work backwards because we know we inverted twice. So we can just go the other way around. So we can put E back on the bottom and then C back on the bottom. So now we know C is on the very bottom. So it's C major. Very good. Yeah. And if you wanted to work backwards, you just move the top one down once and you get A minor. This one's kind of a trick. Some of these, I mean, there can only be 2 inversions, so if it doesn't look like either one, it might not be a triad at all. So that's up to your judgment.
Okay.
The rest of you guys can type in the chat whether you think it is a triad or not.
No.
So is that your final answer? No?
Yeah.
Good, you are correct. This is not a triad. We don't see any of these shapes that we see here. This is just, it's called a cluster instead because it's a bunch of notes that are close to each other. The reason this is not a triad is because it doesn't use the first, third, or fifth of any type of scale. So, and it doesn't really look like any of these either. You don't see like one separated note or anything. So this is not a triad. And good job for identifying that. Okay, so we're done with triads. Now we're gonna go on to scale degrees. For this one, I feel like scale degrees isn't as important to know as like triads and intervals and stuff, but this is still good to know if you want to go into higher levels of music theory. So there are 7 notes in a scale and each has its own name according to their position in the scale. So like the second note is called the supertonic and then so on. And we'll have this box for the questions. You don't have to memorize them for now. And each scale also has scale degrees based on the triads built on each note of the scale. So when building triads on scale notes, you also have to apply the key signature to each note of the triad. So for this picture, we're in C major, so there are no sharps or flats. But if we were writing these triads in like G major, if we had an F anywhere, we would have to do an F sharp on that. And when labeling scale degrees, we would use Roman numerals, which are capitalized if the triad is major and lowercase if it's minor. So the example below, we have a C major scale and they built triads on every single note. So for the first one, it's major because it's C, E, and G. But the second one, we have D, F, and A, which is a minor triad. It would be major if we had an F sharp because there's an F sharp in the key of D, but we don't have that, so it's minor. Same goes for the third one, but the fourth and fifth are major, which is F and G. The sixth one is minor, and the seventh one, does anyone remember what this circle symbol means? Okay, Camellia.
Augmented?
Close.
Diminished.
Very good, it's diminished. The augmented symbol is a plus because you raise it higher, so that can help you remember it, but very good. This is diminished because if it was minor, we'd have an F sharp, but we don't have it, so it's diminished. And this pattern holds for every single major scale that there is, which is pretty interesting. Okay, so we're just going to answer a few questions based on the scale degrees. And don't be scared or like intimidated by these fancy names. These questions are actually pretty easy once you know what they're asking for. Okay, first is a kind of a review question to see if you guys remember. Which 3 you guys remember? Which 3 scale degrees are called the primary triads? Type it in the chat. You can either use numbers or Roman numerals. The primary triads are the ones that are major in a major scale, so all the capitalized ones, which are 1, 4, and 5. Okay, good. And second question, I'll ask one person. What is the subdominant in the key of C major?
The subdominant is F major.
Good, but okay, the question is just asking for a note. So what note would that be?
F.
Very good. So yeah, basically this question is asking what is the 4th note in the key of C major? Very good, it's F. Okay, third question may be a little bit harder. So C sharp is the leading tone of which major key? And if we look over on the right, we know that the leading tone is the 7th note. So basically this question is asking which scale is C sharp the 7th note of?
D major?
Very good. C sharp is the 7th note of D major. Okay, last question. What is the quality of the mediant in C major if you build a triad on it?
Major?
Close. Let's look and see if this is capitalized or not. If it's capitalized, it means it's major. If it's not, it means it's minor. So what does this look like to you?
Minor?
Very good. If we look at E, G, and B, that would be a minor triad. Good job. Okay, so now we're gonna go on to the rest of the review. Okay, so this is naming. So what would we call this? I'll continue calling on people. This is very important to know. If you play piano, you must know that this is called the grand staff. If you don't play piano, that might be a bit more understandable. But if you do play piano if you do play an instrument that uses both of these clefs, when you put them together, it's called a grand staff. A lot of times, the theory test will ask you to draw a grand staff. So it's good to know. Basically, it's two staffs, one treble and one bass, and then you draw a line to connect them, which shows that you're playing them at the same time, and then you draw a bracket. That is called the grand staff. Okay, that's very important to know, so remember that. Okay, second one, very good. And what does a double flat do?
It raises and it lowers the note down one whole step.
Very good. Okay, and then last one, name the following and then tell me what it means too. Very good. It's called a 6/8 time signature, and the 6 means each measure gets 6 counts, and the 8 means an eighth note gets 1 count. Good. But yeah, make sure you know this is called the grand staff. That is very important, and you usually learn that in level 1, so make sure you know that. Okay, so let's see what you remember about the order of sharps. Okay, so I put up some pictures here to help you remember the acronym, if that helps, and type the order of sharps into the chat. Okay, great. So these are the order of sharps, and a good way to remember it is fat cats go down alleys eating bagels. Usually when I take the theory test, I would just write this down whenever they ask me to like write a key signature or something so I can remember it. Okay, so now list the order of flats into the chat. And a hint is that this should be easy once you know the order of sharps. Good, and you remembered the way to the acronym as well. So yeah, it's the opposite of the order of flats. It's the other way around. And a good way to remember it is the word bead and then greatest common factor. Good. Okay, so this is just a picture to show you how to write flats and sharps on the grand staff. For flats, it goes down, up, down, up, down, up, down. For sharps, it's a bit different. It goes up, down, and then it goes down 3 times, and it goes back up and down. And this picture will be on the slides we sent to you, so you can always refer to this. Okay, so now we're gonna go full-on review into naming key signatures. And we're probably not going to finish these slides today, but this class is basically a review, so we're just gonna carry on with these slides in the Saturday session, so yeah. Okay, for now, let's identify the major key signatures. And if you don't remember how to do that, just read these instructions here. Okay, so for sharps, try to find the last sharp and raise it by a half step. Don't just look at the sharp and say the name of that sharp. I think that's
B.
Yeah, it is B major. A major has 3 sharps. Okay, so yeah, we take the A sharp here and we raise it by a half step to get B. Good job. Okay, next one. For flats, just look at the second last flat and that tells you the name of the key. E flat major, because that's the second last flat. Okay, this one has a lot of sharps, but if we follow the same procedure and raise the last one by a half step, what do we get? Very good, we get C sharp major, because B sharp is the same as C, and we raise that by a half step to get C sharp. For flats, we look at the second last flat. D flat is very close too. So we look at the second last flat. So what would be the second last flat in this thing? So this is the last one, and then this is the second last one, because we go by a zigzag order. Okay, so this is the second last flat, which is G flat. So that would be the key of this key signature, since that's the way we tell flats. So that's G flat major, but D flat is very close, so good job. Okay, and if you guys, this is the last thing we're gonna do today, which is relative minor. So identify the relative minor of the following major keys, and remember the way to tell the relative minor is to lower the letter name by 3 half steps. So we have 4 questions, so I'll just call on one of you for each of them.
A major.
Major or minor?
Sorry, minor.
Yeah, very good. It's A minor. Okay, second one.
D sharp major.
Very good. It is D sharp minor. Awesome. Okay, third one.
The third one is let me count. A flat.
Very good. But for B major, if you remember, B major has sharps in the key, so we have to say the equivalent of A flats that has sharps in it. So which would that be?
A sharp and G sharp.
Very good. It is G sharp. Okay, so last one I'll call on Camelia.
E flat.
Very good. So those are the answers. Okay, does anyone have any further questions about what we learned in class today? No? Okay, very good. You guys did very well on the review. And I think this week's homework, there's a bit more too because it's a bunch of review materials. So it's okay if you don't complete it by Saturday, as long as you complete it by next Wednesday. That would be good. Okay, so that's the end of our class for today. I know we went a little bit late, but it was a review session, so there's a lot of stuff to go over. So if there's no further questions, then we will I'll see you all on Saturday. Bye.